You're all very welcome. What do you call it? This kitchen board, I got a present from a friend, and it says, Máire's Kitchen, happiness is harvesting from your garden. And that just sums it up. I get such joy out of seeing a tiny, and you've had a look at the seeds. The seeds are tiny. Like a tomato seed is so small, and yet you get an 8-foot plant and pounds or kilos of tomatoes out of it. And just the joy of watching that, it just keeps you going. I have no formal training, so I'm no expert, but I've 30 years experience or more growing. So I've learned a few things along the way, sort of self-taught. One place that I learned a lot from was the Grow It Yourself movement, Michael Kelly down in Waterford. I was part of the beginning of the group in Rush. I lived in Rush for 22 years and had an 1.5 acres of a garden, a vegetable plot that was 100 foot by 20 feet in a glass house that was 20 foot by 17 feet. I moved to Skerries and I had a tiny garden. And I'll show you pictures now of what I did. I started off the first summer with a window box and I grew some peas, and I had a bucket and I grew a potato. And I started from there and it's built up. So we'll show you as we go along. So basically what I'm going to cover is literally from start to finish, from seed to sowing to germinating to looking after the plants to this is a list of some of the things I've grown. I kept thinking of more and more. I had finished the slideshow last night, and then I added more, remembered more overnight. So apples, aubergine, basil, beans, different varieties, beetroot, borage, broccoli, cabbage, chard, chives, columbine flower, coriander, cucumber, garlic, rhubarb, kale, leeks, lettuce, mange tout, marigolds, melons, mint, mustard, onions, oregano, pansies, parsley, peas, pepper, potatoes, pumpkin, raspberries, rocket, rosemary, scallions, snapdragons, spinach, squash, strawberries, sunflowers, thyme, tomatoes. And there's probably things I've forgotten. I remember one summer when I was living in Rush, I counted up, if you counted each variety of a thing as something separate, like I had 4 varieties of potatoes, for example, I had 60 different things growing that summer. So I'm a little bit more confined now with the smaller space, but doing a bit. So this is what I got when I moved to Skerries. This is my garden. So I started off with the window boxes, and then I had a few pots. I inherited some crates, so I used them. They actually came from Dermot Bannon's garden to be in Drumcondra. I was in contact with the girl who was selling up the house, and she was getting rid of stuff, so I got those from there. One thing I want to emphasize is it doesn't have to cost you big money to grow stuff. You don't have to buy stuff. And we'll continue on. So I eventually stripped everything out. Thanks to Skerries Free Stuff Facebook page, the shed was taken by a man who dismantled it to house his donkeys. The decking he used to put a fence around it. The paving slabs were taken by somebody else. The stones at the back where there had been a tiny little greenhouse where those bins are up at the back, somebody else took them. So literally nothing went to landfill. Everything got reused in the process of clearing it out. So we ended up with a clean slate, more or less. And I designed this from what I wanted, 2 raised beds. What you see here at the back, there's this part of the back was going to be where the greenhouse will be. The large bed is where I have my tomatoes growing now, and the little bed there I had peas and stuff, and the right-hand side was going to be the shed. So this is what it turned out to be with the greenhouse. So I got water running down, so I have a Belfast sink in there, and I have a bench in there for doing all my sowing and potting and all the rest. So what are we going to cover? So what to grow, what do you need to get going, how do you start, how to look after plants, when to harvest, and how to save the seeds and what to do next, okay? What to grow. Number one rule, only grow what you want to eat. There is no point in growing stuff that you're not going to use. Absolutely none whatsoever. And only grow as much as you need. And the thing about it is, like, a packet of seeds could have 1,000 carrot seeds in it. There's no way you're going to grow 1,000 carrots unless you're a farmer. So the big thing with regard to seeds is get together with your friends and neighbours and share and swap. Now I have a big box afterwards. If people want seeds, I'm happy to pass on seeds. I didn't parcel them up because I didn't know who'd want what, but I have loads of seeds, and I save my seeds from one year to the next as well. So you have to consider what space you have. But the whole purpose of this talk is you can grow stuff in the tiniest amount of space. You don't need huge space just to grow something, anything. And the joy you get of saying, I don't use the word that I grew something. I helped nature do its thing, because it's going to do its own thing anyway. All I do is maybe water it or put it, but I can't grow anything. That's nature doing its bit, I can't make it grow. I can help, but I'm not doing the growing. So what you need seed trays or modules or whatever. So this would be considered a seed tray, where it's just one open, one container, and there's no demarcation in it. So this seed tray I just sprinkled with marigold seeds, and then when they germinate, I then what they call prick them out and pot them on. And the way we do that is, one of the things when you're going to move it on from the seed tray, you need some compost, okay? And with the compost, what you want to do is make it moist before you put the plant into it. Don't water it afterwards, okay? So you want to get the water into it first. And you don't want it so wet that if you take a handful and squeeze it, water drips out of your hand. That's too wet. Okay, so you want to absorb water but not be too wet, okay? So what you would do is, and again, you want to label things. So ice cream, it's my excuse to eat ice cream. You can buy plastic ones, but I have changed over the years, and I used to buy all these things. Now I reuse things that are available, and lots of the stuff I have, there's pots here that people can have, you can take them if you want some, but a permanent marker to write on it. Please, if you are going to write down what you're sowing and label it, because you will not remember. Trust me, forget, you forget what you put in. I said, I'll recognize it, or I'll know what it is, So if I want to transplant this, first of all, I'd get a bit of soil, and here's my pot I have. So we get a bit of soil here on the bottom of the pot, okay? And we want to put some at the bottom to start with, and then you want to lift out the seedling, okay? You don't want to, you want to do as little touching of the roots as possible. You don't want to disturb the roots. Okay, so you would lift it up like this, and then hold it by the leaves. Don't hold it by the stem. The leaf can grow back, but if you break the stem, the plant's gone. Okay, so you would lift it up and try and ease it out. Now these have been too long, and I would have normally picked them up earlier. So this one is well attached here. So there we have our little seedling, and I'll put it in here. If it's very, very young, what I do is I would put the soil in, and I just make a little hole with the stick and slot it into the stick, and then what we do is just put the rest of the soil around it. And then what you want to do is you just want to firm it in around the plant, and then you want to have enough water in to get it going, because they're very delicate. So that's just getting the seed going from there. The other thing that's very useful is a notebook, okay? You want to write down what you've got, what you're sowing, etc. Now, you saw the picture in there, the layout of my garden. So I have two beds like this, and I've divided each of them in two, and we'll go on, we'll look at the next bit. There are 4 groups of vegetables, and I've divided them, we rotate them around. So at the back of this little notebook I have a table that has the rotation. Year 1, this is in plot A, B, C, D, and then next year. So I know from one year to next, is it going clockwise or anti-clockwise? Which way am I moving things around? So it's just handy to have that. You only have to do that once. And then each year then I would say, right, in this bit, like this is looking back from the house, which group, food group, vegetable group are in each section. Okay, you need a trowel, you need some compost, some sticks, a pair of gloves. If you're using a raised bed or whatever, a good fork, not too heavy. You don't want, so that's all very helpful. The other thing is when you're potting on, you can use these module trays. They're handy enough, but they're a nuisance when you want to pot them on from here. What's this? When you want to move this on, what you have to do is you have to push it up from the bottom, and then try and gently lift the whole thing out. I find these are better because each little, you've individual little pots. I got this in Aldi or Lidl, I think it was. So it's much easier, and then you can just tap them one at a time. Whereas when you're trying to get one plant out and you're trying to tip it over, you could be knocking out the others. So this I find better. The other thing is when you're watering seedlings, you do not want to use this because you'll flatten them because the holes on these are too big. And they flatten them. So if you're doing gentle seedlings, you use a nice fine little rose head on it, and to keep it gently when you're watering them. Okay? The other thing is that, again, seed trays, you don't have to buy seed trays. These are vegetables. I can't remember, was it grapes came in that. Now these have holes in it. You need holes for drainage. But you don't want water flying everywhere, so you put that into something that doesn't have holes to catch the remaining water, okay? You can use yogurt tubs. You can use these, like you could, set these up in here, put a hole in the bottom of these, and set up your cups like that, and then you can put the water in these. The mushrooms came in that, So you have these materials available, so don't go out buying more plastics. Let's reduce the amount of plastics that are in use. Okay. The other thing is, yes. Yes, they're great for carrots. Yeah. This bucket I have several of these, and these came from SuperValu. They get hard-boiled eggs in them, 6 kilos of them for the salad bar. And again, put a hole in it. I grew potatoes in them. I've grown beetroot in them. I've grown carrots in them. So why go out and spend 20, 30 euro on a flower pot or a big container? These are being chucked out. So you're getting new life to them. So I've half a dozen of them. So you just go up to the salad bar and say, do you have any empty containers, We'll all be going, look at them and saying, where's there a run on buckets? Yeah. Grand. So onwards. The way to get started is to quit talking about it and just do it. Okay. So the seeds, I've sort of covered all of that. So that picture in the bottom right, that's actually the snapdragon flowers that I started off that were given out inside in the hall. On the top there's radishes and lettuce. So the vegetable groups, there are 4 groups. Legumes are peas and beans and stuff, roots, fruit and leaf. So this picture, every photograph is from my garden, of my produce. So the one, this has all the groups in it. So the legumes, you have peas and beans, lentils. What you do need to consider when you're deciding what you want to grow is the height for peas and beans. For example, on the right there, you can't see that, you'll see it in a later picture. there's different heights. You have some bean plants that grow a foot high, others grow 8 feet high. Those ones, they went up the entire length of the bamboo poles and start coming down again. They're a foot down, on their way back down again, they've grown so tall. Like if I had 12-foot poles, they would have kept going, you know. So these are French beans on top, and down the bottom they're broad beans. Sorry. The root vegetables, we have potatoes, carrots, parsnips, garlics, onions, beetroot, radishes. So on the top you have a photograph of onions in their early stages. On the right, one of the interesting things when you grow it yourself is that you get interesting shaped vegetables at times. You know, they're not perfect, but they're yours. They came from your garden and they're fabulous, and you're eating them fresh. So you don't have to buy a kilo of carrots. You go out and dig up 2 carrots if you only need 2 carrots for the dinner. If you want 2 potatoes, you don't have to dig up a whole plant. You go rooting down and pull out 2 potatoes, and there you have them, you know, fresh. So on the bottom we have beetroot. So I tried a new variety this year. So you see the ones on the top left are a paler colour. So they were kind of yellowy ones. On the bottom right is a radish. And this is one that has gone to seed. We'll come back to that later. So with the carrots and onions, or carrots and parsnips, you do get different shapes, as I say. They split because the ground was stony. So for carrots and parsnips, you do need to prepare the ground as well as you can to remove any stones, to give them a chance to go down straight. So I used my first successful carrots were grown in that bucket, because I got sand and soily sand from a house that was doing renovations there beside the flower shop on Strand Street. And they had no obstacles, so they were lovely straight carrots. They were very nice. Those ones came out of the raised bed, and there were a few stones along the way. Then the fruits, tomatoes, melons, cucumbers, peppers, pumpkins. So again, you have cucumbers on the top, and one cucumber plant will give you loads of cucumbers. But you will need to have, there are 2 types of flowers. There's male flowers and female flowers. So you might have loads of flowers, but not all of them produce fruit. So it's only the female flowers that actually produce the actual cucumbers. Peppers, now I grew peppers. I haven't grown them for a few years because they take a long, long time. They need to be started off. You need a greenhouse, or, you know, conservative with sun coming in. You need to start them off in about February or whatever, and you might get 1 or 2 on the whole plant. So it's not a huge return, so I've stopped. It's not worth it. Tomatoes, on the other hand, are very different story altogether.
Are the male and female flowers on the cucumber, are they on the same plant?
Yes, yeah, they are. The tomatoes now, I have 4 varieties on the go this year. Like, they're regular ones. There's plum tomatoes, there's beefsteak tomatoes, and cherry tomatoes. Some of you who were at Sarah Jane's session last year, I had the cherry tomatoes, and we all got to taste them. They're absolutely gorgeous. You get variety. The shops are looking for shelf life, whereas when you grow yourself, you don't care about shelf life, because you're going out, you're picking it, and you're eating it. So you don't have to, and you leave it on the plant till you need it. So, like, if I ask a neighbour, would you like a tomato, and they say, no, I have enough for the moment, I won't give them one to eat 2 days later. I'll wait till they're ready for a tomato to give them. There's no point in having it there and then picking it and sitting it in the kitchen for days. That defeats the purpose, Lettuces, brassica and kales. Now, I have a lovely story. You'll see later on the story of the kales. Spinach, chard, curly kale. So they're all another group. So you have to rotate, because each of these, I don't know all the science of it, but each group takes stuff from the soil and puts stuff in the soil, and by moving them around, you prevent disease and you help keep the soil, what one depletes, the other puts back, this kind of thing. And then herbs, so we've got chives, some thyme, oregano, rocket. Rocket, you need to sow very frequently, sort of every 2 weeks or so, because it goes to seed very quickly. Now, if you want the seeds, that's great, because I grew for the leaf and the seed, but it tends to bolt and very quickly. So you're better off doing a little and often rather than doing a whole lot once. Same with lettuce, radishes, sow a little and often rather than your whole sprout, because they will bolt and then they won't be so good. Oops, sorry. So germination, we were talking about that. We started off, that's the seed tray, which I just scattered with marigold seed. Or you can start off straight into your module trays. I would, for peas and stuff, I used to start in the module trays, but then I was saying I was wasting all the compost, and then if it doesn't germinate, that whole section has been wasted and that time's been wasted. So if you do a seed tray, you only transplant the ones that have actually germinated. So it's kind of better use of your compost, you know. Then transplanting, there's two pictures here. The one on the left was one of the snapdragon plants that was in the module tray before it was transplanted into a bigger pot. And because it had been in here, you can see the roots don't have room to go anywhere, so they're wrapped around each other. Whereas the one on the right was in the seed tray much longer than I would have normally. They were too long there. So the roots went all over the seed tray because they weren't as confined. So it's, you know, for transplanting, it can be easier to get them out of this rather than, don't leave them too long in the seed tray is what I'm saying if you do start them off in a seed tray. Potatoes. So potatoes, you start off, you can buy seed potatoes, or if any are growing in your cupboards. Like this one has grown, but it's wrinkled as well because it's been a long time there. But you have to start, if you speed up the growing of the potato, if what you call chitting it, letting the eye of the potato sprout. So what I do is when I get them, I stick them in an egg box and have the eyes facing up. And when do that for a couple of weeks, if you buy seed potatoes, or even, you know, if you get to the stage where they start growing in your cupboard, don't throw them out and say they're no good. Plant them, and then you'll have a feast later on in the summer, you know. So the middle picture is, that was my old swimming bucket that cracked. You would have seen me down with it. The handle broke and then there was a split down the side. I said, I'm not throwing that out. So I throw like one potato in that bucket, then you have a feast of potatoes later on. So you don't need to throw things out. You can use them again. And what's on the right, they were the potatoes that came from that one potato that was planted. And that was their, I think they're, what do you call it? Roosters, yeah. So that was just one rooster that was sprouting on me. So I just threw it in the bucket and that's what I got back. So carrots and parsnips, as I said earlier, you need to prepare the ground well. And here there's an example. This first, that's the carrots growing on the left. This one here is, that picture is a carrot I picked up. I picked up as to thin it out. That was it on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I picked these ones today, so they're a different size. Now they are carrots, they're not parsnips. I thought maybe there was a rogue seed in there, but I checked the pack. No, there are a particular variety of white carrot. And the ones, these ones down here, I call my dancing carrots. Now, on the right, there's a story behind those. They're parsnips, believe it or not. A friend of mine gave me, she had planted some parsnips in a big pot. And there was there were 4 parsnips in each pot. So I transplanted them into the ground. You cannot transplant root vegetables. It doesn't work because they just like to go down. They're a tap root, so they just go down straight. So sow your carrots and parsnips where they're to grow. So what happened with those, they went all over. Every little side hair became another root. So I cut off all the bits, and that's what the bottom picture is, how many tails there were, or you know. But I cooked it all and I ate it all. I don't, you know, appearance doesn't matter. Like it's food and you get to eat it. Onions. There's 2 ways of growing onions. One is from seed and one is from what they call onion sets. And basically an onion set is an onion that's grown from seed only to about this size and stopped, and then you plant it the next year. So like an onion set would be about the size of this scallion. It's about that size kind of thing. And you can buy them in bags, you know, from garden shops or from Lidl or whatever, you know, in the springtime. There's too many if you have a small space. So again, share with your friends. If you want a variety, mix and match with other people. Like one of you buy the white onions, the other buy the red onions and swap. Similarly with the potatoes. So what you let them grow, and when they start to bend over at the neck, like so, you see it bends over. This one was, oops, sorry, not to worry. I picked this one today and I picked this one a couple of days ago, but they were the neck had fallen over. So once that happens, you know they're ready. They're not going to grow any bigger. So that's when you know when to harvest the onions. So then what you want to do is you need to dry them. That's grand. So you lay them out and let the sun shine on them or whatever. And then when they're nice and dry, the ones that will store well are the ones that have a narrow neck. If the neck is wide, they won't keep. So you need to use them first. So, but what you can do then, sorry, I'm blocking the picture there. So you can plait them up. You start off with taking 3 of them together like that, and then you sort of do like your French plait, and you bring each one. You take off the roots, and then you would, as you add each one, you add it in, and then you start plaiting. So you do your French. It's like doing a French plait with the hair. So you bring the next one in, and then you get the next one and bring that over, and then get the next one. And you just continue your way up until you get your big long string, and then you can, you know, cut off the ends and hang them up. Then you tie them off at the end and hang them up. Like that first year now in the garden, they were all the onions I got, and they kept me going right through until February. Garlic that's elephant garlic on the left, just to show you the size of it compared to the orange. They were huge. I bought them from Mr. Middleton in Mary Street, and I thought I was getting 2 bulbs, which you'd split into, you know, from one bulb you might get 6, 7, 8, 9 cloves, and you separate them all out and plant them one at a time. The thing about garlic is, ideally it needs 6 weeks cold weather, so it needs to be planted before the winter. So the rule of thumb is by 21st of December to have it planted, and then you'd harvest it around the 21st of June. So it goes from the coldest to the whatever. So this is it growing in a pot, so it's quite possible to grow it in a pot. And again, I would plait it up like that to keep it for the winter or for the following year. Tomatoes. Now, for those you see, the tomato seed is absolutely tiny. So if you want to just pass that around. And the plant grows 8 feet, 10 feet. The guys in Rush layer them. Sharon knows all about this. And what they do is that the plant needs support, okay? So we started off, these were, the ones on the left there, they were actually plants that were grown by a guy who lives just down the road, and we do a plant swap because I didn't get started in time. So I gave him plants and he gave me tomato plants. So what I do is if you can see in the right-hand picture, there's a plastic thing. That's a litre bottle, you know, a 7-Up bottle with the bottom cut off, turned upside down and submerged into the ground. The purpose of that is you put that down beside each plant so that you can water to the roots and not to the surface. So you're not getting the roots to come up to the surface to get the water. The water's going down to the roots. And also it helps you measure the amount of water. So when I'm watering them with the watering can, I know I just fill it up to the top of that, and then that's that for a day. Like My father-in-law was a commercial grower, so I learned all my tomato keeping from him. And it was a pint of water per day per plant. So when I moved to Skerries, they said, would you get a dog for company? I said, no, you're not fine. But my problem now is when I go away is I have to get somebody to water my tomato plants. So my neighbour very kindly looked after that. Now, when they start off, there's lots of leaves. But as time goes on and the plants, once the plants flower, then you need to start feeding them. So you would feed them once a week with the tomato plant food. You just pour it into the water and water it with them. And as they grow, you then start removing the leaves to let the air in and let the sunlight in. So the middle one, this is that was about last week or so, last week or the week before, have taken off all the lower leaves to give the tomatoes a chance to get the light. Now, one of the things you need to tie them up. So I don't know, you can't see it very well, but there's actually a twine that goes around. And there's a phrase amongst the tomato growers called twisting and shooting. And basically what happens is when the plant is tall enough just to stand, if you have the option of an overhead wire, you would tie a string onto it and drop the string down, loop it around the bottom, and then as the plant grows, you twist the string around it to keep it going upright. The shooting bit is taking away the side shoots. So this is a side shoot here. So you don't want wasted growth going into more leaves. You want to concentrate it on the fruit. So you take away the side shoots as early as possible, not to waste the growth. Beans and mange tout, etc. The picture on the left, the three lighter coloured ones, they were French beans, okay? The ones on the right were another type of bean, but they were dwarf beans. So the two plants on the right, on the left-hand picture, but on the right of it, they only grew to a foot. But the ones on the left, I was telling you, they grew to up the canes and back down again. They were growing so tall. So this is them, last week. And behind them are the mange tout, and you can see the yellow pods on them. One thing I've learned, especially if you don't label things, if you grow peas and mange tout, and they're both green, and you don't know which is which, you end up letting the mange tout grow too long, and then it's only when then you discover, oh no, they were the mange tout, I should have picked them earlier. So the trick is, there are different coloured peas and mange tout. So now I grow yellow mange tout, and I have purple peas, or purple, green peas and purple mange tout. So if it's yellow, pick it quick, So just something to bear in mind if you want to grow the two, and maybe you prefer mange tout to peas. And to be honest, I hardly ever got the peas into the house. I'd go out to water the plants and I'd be eating them before I'd even bring them back into the house. They were like sweets. This was, I don't know where, somebody gave me a mustard plant. I think I got it at Sustainable Skerries, something or other. It was a tiny little, it was this size. It grew up the full height of the glass house with this lovely yellow flower, and this was the pod that came off it. And there was loads of them. Every one of those yellow flowers became a little pod for the mustard seed. And you can see the mustard seed, it's up here on the stage there. Kale, now this is the story to introduce you to the wonderful world of biodiversity. I started off, like most people, with my slug tox and pellets and all the rest, and killing everything in sight. And then I learned the error of my ways. And when I started in Skerries, I had planted the kale, and I spotted on the left here, you see, butterfly eggs on the underside of the leaves. And I studiously went out every day, looked for the eggs and picked them off. And I said, would you ever cop yourself on? Here I am with Sustainable Skerries talking about biodiversity, and what am I doing? Killing the eggs of the butterflies. I said, that's not right. So I said, let them go, let them be. So I did. And if I did, we got black caterpillars, we got hairy ones, and we got green ones, who munched everything in sight and left me with these. However, the good news is, once they had demolished the plants completely, and I've lovely videos of the caterpillars actually, I was hoping to try and show you that, but caterpillars munching away. When the caterpillars went off and made their cocoons and flew off as butterflies, the plant recovered, believe it or not, and I got kale for the rest of, that happened in May, and I got kale that whole summer, right through the winter. So don't despair when you see that. It's still possible to get. The other thing is the slugs. They're the bane of most gardeners' lives, and I used to, again, originally I would throw out the slug pellets, and then I discovered that people suggested eggshells, so I save all my eggshells and I crush them up, and they don't like to go over rough surfaces, so if you sprinkle them around. And then the latest I heard was ground coffee beans. So one of my neighbours works in a cafe, and I got a big bag of coffee beans, and I'd just sprinkle that all around the bed. Your best thing is to go out at night with a torch and pick them all up. Now, if you throw your snails across the wall to your neighbour, they have a homing instinct and they come back. So don't do that. So what I've lately been doing, I'm feeling even bad. The other thing is beer traps, to drown them in beer. And I said, well, they die happy, but so what I'm now doing is I'm putting them in my brown bin. They're having a feast in the brown bin. So what happens to them when they go to landfill or go to the compost, that's another story. Oops. So saving seeds, so that's when you're going through all your vegetables and stuff. This is a radish that has gone to seed. And you can see there's a little, there were lovely flowers on it. There's a little pod comes on it. This is where the seeds will go. What you need, with all the seed pods, you need to let them dry out completely. And for example, we have, these are the Mange 2 seed pods when they've dried out. So you let them dry as much as possible, and then you open them up and save it. You want to store them in a cool, dry place, or keep them cold so that they know it's winter time kind of thing. Some people put them in, envelopes or whatever and stick them in the fridge for the winter. You can do that, but a cool, dark place is where you want to store them ready for the next season. What else have I got there that I wanted to show you? Yeah, those ones on the right, they're the snapdragons. So the flowers make these little pods, and then they're like little cups, and then when the wind comes, they shake them out, and you can see all the little black seeds. If you want to pass them around, you can see the seeds at the bottom. And similarly, these are the remains of the flowers. These are a beautiful blue flower that the bees love, called columbine. And again, it's like a little umbrella with lots of, they're tiny little seeds. But when you think each flower on the plant produces a pod, which produces, like the rate of reproduction of seeds to plant is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. This tub is kale seed, and that all came from one plant. And each one plant only needed one of those seeds, and all of those seeds came from that one plant. And I told some other people before, when I moved to Skerries, and you want to keep the pollinators going, I bought some marigold seeds, one packet of 30 marigold seeds. And they're great companion plants for tomatoes. They help keep the green fly and aphids away. So I planted the marigolds, and I collected the seed at the end of the summer. And I got 3/4 of a litre of seed from those 30 plants, and have since sown them a couple of hundred at a time and passed them on to the tidy towns, and they've been planted all around Skerries. So there's over 1,000 marigold seed plants have come from those original 30 plants, and they're all around Skerries now. And similarly with the snapdragons, I didn't plant snapdragons in my garden. There were none there. So there was a rogue seed got dropped by a bird or something, and I saved the seed last year, and must be 200 or more plants now have gone to the Tidy Towns. A lot of you may have got them over in the hall today. Then preserving. Once you have got your harvest, you want to, if you're a glut, you want to make the most of the produce, so you can dehydrate it. Now, last year, the year before, one of the Skerries Frosties lent me her dehydrator, and you know her. So I dried apples, I dried cucumber, kale, what else did I do? Radishes. So you just slice them all thinly and then put them in the dehydrator, and then they come out like crisps. Another way, fermentation is something I haven't got into, but it's a way of preserving food. Like the Eastern Europeans do, like sauerkraut would be an example of fermentation, where you're pickling cabbage, pickling onions, that kind of thing. Freezing, you can freeze. Like I've frozen some of the beans that I've grown this year. I used to freeze, I had apple trees, I used to cook the apples and freeze them. And then I realised that was using energy, and said, I don't want to be using energy to store the stuff all year. So I've now discovered that instead of freezing the cooked apple, once I put it in hot sterilised jars, I can keep it, you know, for several years even, you know. The other thing is storing for carrots and parsnips and stuff. You can store them in sand over the winter, turnips, anything of those root vegetables. Potatoes, keep in a cool, dark place, and they stay good for apples. We had an apple tree when I was a kid, and we had apples right through to February. Once there's air circulating around them and they're not touching, and that you don't, you know, don't store anything that has any bruising on it, because they will go bad, and make sure, check them every now and again. So get rid of the one bad apple. You've heard that phrase, like it just rots everything else. And then processing. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been busy making, over here, there's jams and chutneys, so of apple chutney, apple and cucumber chutney, tomato relish. I've discovered a red tomato chutney this year, first time I made it. I always make green tomato chutney at the end of the season when they haven't ripened and they're not going to ripe. I have a great recipe for green tomato chutney, and that keeps me going right through the year. But this year it was 6 pounds of tomatoes were in red tomatoes. So I had 12 pounds of tomatoes, so I made 2 batches of it, and it has to mature, but it was nice licking the spoon, let's put it that way. So I have, what else have I got over here? Beetroot, beetroot. I grow the beetroot for beetroot relish. It was Nuala McGuinness in Rush now gave me the recipe, and it is it's apples, onions, and beetroot. And I put it on my sandwich instead of butter. Like it's just gorgeous. So there's always, to make best use of it. So the summary, grow what you like to eat, share seeds and seedlings with others, use recycled containers where possible, grow flowers for pollinators. So we have the marigolds there with the bees on them, and this is a great plant. That's borage, isn't it, Charlie? I have 2 plants that I told were great for the bees, and I can't remember which is which, but I think that one's borage. And the bees love that. And then choose varieties that suit your space. So if you haven't got room to go out, the other thing is, I forgot to say, is to go up, that you can grow vertically. So over in the hall today, there was a lady there selling stuff, and she had her display on it was like a step ladder. There are things like that you can get for your plants. So you can put your pots on like a set of steps. Or what some people do is get a ladder and just put it up against, a ladder and put your pots on each step of the ladder, or step ladder. Swap your produce with friends and preserve the produce for the following year and save your seeds. And thank you.